7 a.m., and it's now time for the morning watch right here on the family station, Love 101.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the award-winning The Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you are overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you are in the UK, 0330-332-6541. Or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. And of course, welcome to our viewers as well, not only listeners. And in the first watch today, if Jamaica has accepted the WHO's International Health Regulations, IHR amendments, what does this mean for us? And in second watch, exploring the connection between low literacy and our economic future, should we be alarmed? For our social media question, we ask, what more do we need to do now to raise our literacy rate and hence save our economic future? Share your responses in our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp, 876-9973-125, using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your response later on the program, but first, as I quote,
All right, good morning, good morning, good morning. Today's I quote says, of course, it's Latin, but in English, a rough road leads to the stars.
I wonder what that means. Persevere.
I guess so. I said that.
Paraspera ad astra. Okay. Is Latin and means a rough road leads to the stars. Interesting. Good morning, Jacal.
Good morning.
The first watch. We'll be back after this break.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
Don't let freshness ditch you when you need it the most. Wash your clothes with Downy Softener to keep dazzling everyone around you from day to night. Try Downy Softener now. Downy.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Now, we have discussed it on the Morning Watch before the amendments were made, and we have been watching the developments. Well, we're talking about the WHO's World Health Organization's International Health Regulations. And in 2024, the World Health Assembly, WHA, adopted amendments to the International Health Regulations, IHR, that significantly expanded the World Health Organization's, WHO's, authority over international public health responses. Now, in terms of this topic, we know that there are persons who have differing views on this matter. We have asked for representatives from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, and the opposition spokesperson for health. They have not responded to our requests or to our phone calls in terms of information in relation to whether they would be available to be interviewed this morning. Other health professionals were not available for this discussion as well. Well, we have here to discuss these issues this morning Dr. Wayne West. Dr. Wayne West is the chairman of the Jamaica Coalition for Air Health. Dr. Wayne West, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, sir.
Okay.
Now, we really had hopes to have an official here from one of the relevant ministries here to help us to unearth and to flesh out some of these issues. Chief among them is whether there was any particular deadline relevant to Jamaica to reject international health regulations amendments. And alas, to this point, we have not had them on. However, we are going to be speaking with you, Dr. Wayne West. Now, what is the IHR, firstly, Dr. West? Because the international health regulations are nothing new. We have had them for maybe at least about 20 years now. And what does it have to do with Jamaica? And then what are these amendments that some persons are very concerned about? Dr. West?
Are you still hearing me?
Loud and
But
clear.
because I wasn't seeing myself. Well, first of all, let me just lay a little foundation here
Yeah.
to what I am not doing and what the group that I belong to is not doing. We are not saying that you should not belong to the international health regulation, the WHO and the international health regulation that is associated with it. Okay, we are not saying that at all. We think it's
We didn't
important.
either. We didn't either.
Right.
We did not either.
We think it's important that there be some international framework to deal with issues like a pandemic, like COVID. So it's important. That is important. All right. The international health regulations, really, I think they are a legally binding set of regulations that came into effect sometime in 2005. Although they existed before that, they existed some way back in 1951. But the last set of changes, I think, to them was sometime in 2005. And people didn't think they achieved all that they were supposed to have achieved. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, I think particularly the United States wanted to make changes that would, tighten them up and lead to some better outcomes. To deal with these challenges, and they are real challenges, of international health emergencies, as they've come to be known, WHO actually tried to get what's called a pandemic treaty signed, but that hasn't taken off yet. So they've reverted to what already exists, which are the international health regulations, and to which essentially I think all states, most states have signed on to. Well, what they did is they sought to make some amendments to them after discussions, and those amendments were made sometime by the World Health Assembly in 2024.
Yeah.
So the issues about the amendment, this is where we are a bit wary about some of the amendment. One of the amendments is the
Dr. West, just pause one moment for
Okay.
me, please. There was a slight challenge with the transmission. So you said something
All
about this is where you are wary. Is that what you said? You use the word wary. W-A-R-Y?
Yes. W-A-R-Y, wary. It is the role that the director, one of the things we're wary about is the role that the Director General of the World Health Organization will play in the amendments. Now,
okay.
The issues arise because of the way the COVID-19 pandemic was managed. For example, if I were to give you a list of countries like the USA, Trinidad and Tobago, the UK, Canada, Jamaica, and Nigeria, which of those countries would you think had fewer deaths per million population during the COVID-19 pandemic? And I will answer for you. The answer is Nigeria. Nigeria. African countries, a lot of them had very few deaths during the COVID-19 pandemic. We didn't hear a lot of that in the news. But that's true, because while the USA, for example, had 3 deaths per million population, my apologies, 3,099 deaths per million population, Nigeria had 14. Now, which of those countries were more vaccinated? And the United States was 69% vaccinated. Now, this data is coming from a site called Statistica, as well as the Johns Hopkins University, which is the best epidemiological center in the world. So which give you the amount, the percent vaccination and the deaths, all right? The USA, for example, had 69% vaccinated its population. The Jamaica was 26% vaccinated its population at that time, which was July, I think 13, 2022, when this data came about. Trinidad and Tobago was 47% vaccinated. But if you look at the death rates per million and compare them to the vaccination rates, you find that there is no real correlation, because the USA, which is 69% vaccination, had 3,099 deaths per million. Trinidad and Tobago, 47% vaccinated, had 2,880 deaths per million. Jamaica, 26% vaccinated, had 1,066 deaths per million. So having higher vaccination rates did not necessarily.
Dr.
Hello?
West, you didn't give the vaccination rate for Nigeria.
It was 28%.
Okay.
28%, but they had 14 deaths per million. So there was no real correlation with vaccination rates and deaths per million. In fact,
do you have the deaths per rate per million for Jamaica?
Yeah, the death rate for Jamaica was 1,066 per million. The death rate for the UK was 2,688 per million, and the UK was 75% vaccinated. So although vaccination was a major plank of the management strategy.
You made mention of Nigeria, and you might want to advise listeners as to why you singled out Nigeria, for example.
Well, because it was anticipated that African countries would do very poorly in the COVID-19 pandemic, but this didn't turn out to be the case at all. The country, they did better than even Canada at 83% vaccinated. Canada had 1,110 deaths per million. So
some persons may argue that maybe they didn't collect enough data in Nigeria or some other African countries. Any comments on that?
Maybe, but Jamaica, with 26% vaccination rate, had a fewer deaths per million than the United States and the UK.
Understood.
And I think Jamaica collects reasonably. So when you look at vaccination, which was a major plank of the management strategy of WHO during the COVID-19 pandemic, when you look at the data and deaths and vaccination rate, there wasn't necessarily a correlation to say that higher rates of vaccination necessarily led to fewer deaths per million.
Understood.
All right? Yes. So that's one thing. The other thing that you could look at is the lockdown strategy. And you will see
the WHO has put something out. I'm not sure if it's the most recent thing they've put out, but my understanding is that they are claiming that in the amendments they'll not be imposing lockdowns.
Well, they said they will not be imposing, they will not be challenging national sovereignty at all. That is a statement that they make. But the devil is in the details, because there's also, when you look at the amendments, there are things like financing and so. But let me come back to the lockdown. It was another major strategy of the WHO, which countries that went along with WHO, for example, followed. But it has been, I think we're losing again. The lockdowns were not as straightforward. The consequences of the lockdown, right? The consequences of the lockdown were not as beneficial in a straightforward relationship as you would think, because countries like Sweden, for example, didn't quite follow WHO, and they did pretty well. Not to say that they didn't lock down at any time, they did, but they did well. In addition, they didn't shut down their schools, and the children have done better, because the lockdown had effects on the children, effects on economy. What I'm saying is that WHO's strategies were not necessarily the best strategies, and that when people had the freedom to do other things, it made a difference. It made a difference. So it's not that they don't want collaboration, but what you don't want is imposition.
You don't want imposition, but you don't mind collaboration. But what you don't want is imposition. Dr. Hold that thought for a second, because we are now upon a break. Never enough time with the Morning Watch. Listeners, please stay with us. We'll be right back at the Morning Watch.
year. But no worries, Lanco has you covered. By the way, you're covered with Lanco Cool Guard or Urethanizer roof coating yet? Use Lanco roof coatings to waterproof your roof and also benefit from a cooler home with our advanced Thermoflex technology. Get 10 to 20% discount on Lanco Urethanizer and Cool Guard roof coating island-wide this hurricane season. Lanco, your waterproofing expert.
Tiles, and more tiles. It's the Totally Tiles sale event at Home and Things. Enjoy massive savings on new arrivals, plus weekly flash deals you don't want to miss. Save big on A-grade floor and wall tiles. Trendy designs, colors and sizes, we've got it all. Plus other items discounted store-wide. Catch the Totally Tiles sale event now on at Home and Things, Oldsworth Road and Constance Ring Road. Follow us at Home and Things JA on Instagram and TikTok for our flash deals weekly. Lots of tiles, lots of styles, lots of deals.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the first watch, and the topic is: if Jamaica has accepted the WHO's International Health Regulations amendments, what does this mean for us? Our guest is Dr. Wayne West. Dr. West, you are making a point just before the break. Please continue your thought, and if you could help us to answer the question, if you can. We know that we don't have anyone from officialdom on the platform this morning, but maybe you can help us as well to understand whether we have in fact not rejected the amendments, which would mean that we have gone along with them. But continue your thought, Dr. West. Dr. West.
Right. Okay. So, yes, the role of the Director General is to determine whether there is a public health emergency of international concern. And I mean, somebody has to do that, and it's proper that someone with the expertise and the information do that. And then the Director General sets up this emergency committee, which instructs him on what to do. Now, if you just go along, remember these things are legally binding. Okay, if you accept the present amendment, it's legally binding. The question is, what happens if state parties? This is the way the UN refers to countries like Jamaica as state parties. What happens if we do not comply? Because tied into these amendments are funding, things like financial, finances to help countries. Secondly, things like the distribution of commodities like maybe vaccines and medications and so on. So
I think we have lost you, Doctor.
The amendments and so on don't. Oh, okay. The amendments and so do not state specifically what happens if a state does not comply. Or the amendments and so on are set up to create the impression or that you have in cooperation, but they are binding. And if a state does not comply, what happens? And that is not spelled out, and we think it should be spelled out. How can you go into a legally binding arrangement and you don't know? Suppose in Jamaica decide that, listen, for our country, it is probably best that we don't go along with this particular recommendation of the Director General. What is the consequence? And we don't see that spelled out in the document. So that's one.
Oh, yes. And secondly,
the other thing of concern is the Director General and his team are responsible for organizing a finance committee and to get financing to deal with these emergencies as they are called. Now, who is going to be funding? Who is going to be contributing to that money? Because they use some terms which are sort of vague, because the way the pandemic management and so on are supposed to be, or I should say, the public health emergencies of international concern, the way they are to be managed is with what's called solidarity and equity. Now, what do those words mean? Solidarity and equity. What is Jamaica getting into if the finances and the management must be with solidarity and equity? And we come back to the financing, because, for example, the United States has pulled out of WHO because it doesn't like the way the ideology of WHO. because
Well,
WHO does.
they announced that they're pulling out, but I don't think it's immediate. Isn't it a 12-month process?
I'm not quite. I don't think it happened immediately, but there is a process. But they are pulling out, and they are substantial funders to the WHO.
Okay.
But there are other people who fund the WHO whose interests are questionable. For example, Bill Gates is a significant funder of the WHO. In fact, Bill Gates actually applied to be recognized as a nation in the under the WHO. I don't know what became of that.
You mean him in his personal name or his entity, or an entity that he?
Well, his entity that they be recognized as a nation. But you know, they say who pays the piper calls the tune. And
Well,
the question is,
some persons might welcome Bill Gates' entity for helping to fund the WHO.
well, that is true, but one of the things that Bill Gates is very much about is about culling populations. And you know,
Can you elaborate on the meaning of culling, because people might hear you say
population, to decrease populations,
to decrease the size of the population
of countries, of some countries anyway, of countries. So so the other issue, like I say, we're talking about financing the efforts of the international health regulation with solidarity and equity, whatever that means. Although we don't really see it spelled out to say exactly what it means. And that funding comes from various persons. I suppose countries like Jamaica, who are dependent really, are looking to get help from any source they can. And one of the sources they may be getting help from will be funding, say, some individuals like Bill Gates. But what comes along with that funding? What is the other side of that funding that the commitments that we are not doing?
The only challenge we might be having this morning is that perhaps you probably don't have a list of what would come with the funding. But I want to quickly raise this with you because there's enough time on the morning watch, and we are already in the second half of the first watch, and there was a letter that you had written, or that your organization, the Jamaica Coalition for a Healthy Society, had written to the government, the Prime Minister in particular. I've seen a copy of the letter, and in that letter you raised the issue of a particular date and whether or not Jamaica was bound by that date in terms of objecting to the amendments. Did you get a response to that letter from the government?
No, we haven't got a response to that letter, but we have found out from another party where an interview was done, and that party called the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and the date for responding for Jamaica is September 19th. We were of the view that it might have been July 19th, but for the date is different.
If I could assist there, because I had in fact spoken to the same source, and it appears as if that is a date for that's a date more in terms of implementation, but not so much a date to object. So it seems to still be open as to what the date for objection for Jamaica is, or what it was, whether it was the 19th of July, which would have been last week, Friday, or I'm sorry, Saturday, or some other date. So, which is why we would have loved to have had someone from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, or the Ministry of Health and Wellness on the platform this morning to help us to clarify all of that. But be that as it may, whatever the date it is or isn't, do you have any information as to Jamaica's position? Is it that the Jamaican government is minded to object anyway, or is it minded to go along with the amendments?
Our understanding is that
regardless of the deadline.
Right. Our understanding is that the Jamaica government is going along with the amendments, and does not plan to make any objections or express any concerns about.
And in terms of these amendments, can you in short shrift, in a very short summary, say what these amendments entail?
Well, the amendments again are the key role that the Director General will be playing in determining an emergency and setting up the systems and
what would he be able to do? What would he or she be able to do at the moment? Say he. What would he?
They basically are going to be the ones who will be determining policies, but they are saying that those policies will not theoretically be imposed on states, but they're not. But if
imposed.
But the thing about it is that if you are funding the state, and
We,
if there is no,
we've heard the point on funding, but I'm balancing that as well with what the WHO has put out, that they are not trying to impinge on the sovereignty of a country, but at the same time, the Director General will be able to impose measures. So how does that square to you?
well, yeah, the thing that is where the question mark is. He sets up the management strategy. They control the finances related to the implementation of these issues. They are what happens to a state that does not comply. If a state says, "Listen, I don't agree with WHO strategy on lockdown. We're going to do something different," but the state is bound to the amendments, which is to follow the Director General. What happens to that state? We don't see that being discussed.
More and none on that, as well as more and none on whatever date would have applied or did apply to Jamaica in terms of objecting to the amendments. I want to raise this with you quickly, sir, because I'm seeing the time already. It's going quickly.
Yeah.
Italy and the United States of America put out statements to indicate that they have rejected the amendments to the
Yeah.
international health regulations. I saw the one from the US first, and then afterwards I saw one from Italy. Any comments on that?
Well, for the United States expressly said that one of the things that the IHR would demand of states is digital IDs, for example. So, for example, if you want to travel from Jamaica to go to somewhere, you'll have to have a digital ID saying that this is your status with respect to either vaccinations or medication. And the US said they reject that out of hand. I don't really see that expressly stated in the amendments. But like I said, the Director General is responsible for developing strategies. And those strategies you have to comply with. So what are those strategies and what are the implications of not complying with them? Those are the questions that Jamaica has to answer.
Are you going to be following up in terms of your correspondence with the government, since there might be some other questions, clearly from even listening to you, seeing how you are reacting, there are clearly things that you would like answers to. Do you plan to have any follow-up with the government of Jamaica on these issues?
No, not at the moment, not really. We thought it's important to at least let the public know that there are some unanswered questions which could impact Jamaica, and we don't know how they will impact Jamaica, but which Jamaica is binding itself to. So we are binding ourselves to a strategy for dealing with these issues, for which we do not know what would happen if we don't go along with the Director General. And we think that that is not a satisfactory position to be in. The amendment should state those sort of things clearly before you sign on to them.
Well, interestingly, in this case, signing on is sort of done in the inverse.
That's right. You automatically sign on.
By not objecting or technically signing on.
Absolutely. And that's the problem. That's the problem. That's the problem. That's the problem.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, some persons may think, Dr. West, that they have no difficulty with not objecting. They might welcome a global response, and they might not even have a problem with imposition. Any words to the wise? Any thought?
Well, I always say, I remember reading once about some animal, I think sheep, who can jump very high, but they will not jump if there's a barrier, because they don't jump where they cannot see what is on the other side, which makes sense. You don't jump over a fence if you don't know that on the bottom of that, when you get over that fence, there may be snakes. The WHO did very good work in the past in terms of immunizations and so on and so forth. But the WHO comes with an ideology at the moment, and that ideology is open to questions. So we do not think it's wise to give the Director General a pass to have you sign on to complying with what they want when you do not know what is the consequence of not complying with what they want, because that is not discussed in an open manner.
I think we're totally out of time, Dr. West, but I think the concerns you're raising are also human rights related.
Yes, they are national sovereignty related, and people must be. We shouldn't allow unelected people to put us in a position where we may be compromised because we don't do what they say.
Have to leave it there this morning. More and none. We will follow up with you, Dr. West, as usual. Thank you for your time and for your thoughts.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being a guest on the Morning Watch. Listeners, please stay with us. We'll be right back at the Morning Watch.
Start your journey with a JN Small Business Loan with small business loans as little as $10,000 and up to $4 million. The time by JN Small Business Loan is
Just about 7:31 a.m.
Me just never did I get through with no work, and me did I get desperate. Till one day me see one ad, but them want somebody for work at a massage parlor. Trust me, the place was nothing like them advertised. From the very first day, I had to be giving much more than massages.
Verify the legitimacy of job advertisements with the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. To report suspected cases of human trafficking, call the nearest police station, 119 or 888-PROTECT. A message from the Ministry of National Security.
FunFest is fun can done thanks to our partners Brunswick, Honeybun, Pasquale Yogi Kids, New Pack, NCB, and Love FM. Come enjoy FunFest Family Festival with family, friends, and fun. Friday, August 1st, Emancipation Day at Hope Gardens. Gates open at 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Come on early, come on early, come on early, come on early. FunFest.
We've seen a lot of our customers make some good moves over the years. Whether it's sharing a hug with a friend you haven't seen in a long time or sharing a meal, Grace has been there. So let's keep making these moments together, because rest assured, every time you choose Grace, you know you're making a good move.
Always a good move when you're moving with Grace.
Hurricane season is here. Is your property underinsured? If your policy hasn't been updated in years, you are at risk. One hurricane and you could be paying millions out of pocket. Don't get caught off guard. Know your property's value. Talk to your insurance provider today. Check it, value it, insure it. Real value, real coverage. A message from the Insurance Association of Jamaica, protecting what matters most.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Let's take a look now at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. And we have here in the Jamaica Observer, ribbon cut for long-awaited start of US $1 billion Harmony Cove Resort project. And we have also in the Jamaica Observer, back to basics. Former national cricketer calls for more grassroots focus as Grange promises investment amid Windies struggle. This story by Daniel Blake, sports writer for the Jamaica Observer. And in the Jamaica Observer as well, here a story by Lisa Dunkley Willis. A very interesting story here, and one that persons might find interesting indeed. Delivered from lust and porn, man shares how he overcame craving for smut. And there's a photograph here of the gentleman, and the story is there. Many persons can take a look at that. We also have in the Jamaica Observer, smoking under fire. Smoking under fire. Legislators recommend total ban on advertising or display of tobacco products. We now turn to the Gleaner. 4 U.S. cruise ship passengers accused of smuggling drugs and detained in Bermuda. Another one here. St. Andrew farmer dies after machete attack in Mount Industry. Condolences to his family. Not a pleasant story indeed. Not a pleasant one. Another one here we have 3 men charged in $9.3 million ganja bust in Toms River. Charges pending against Haitian men. And a story of interest here. UWI Professor Lloyd Waller is new chairman of Heart NSTA Trust. Those and many other stories in our various news sources coming up next. We'll read for you some of the feedback from our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp question, which is, what more do we need to do now to raise our literacy rate and hence save our economic future? If you haven't done so yet, leave your responses in our Love 101 FM Jamaica Live on our Facebook or YouTube, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes to 9973 125. Use the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll be right back.
Mama work hard, for real. She do the most to send me and my brother go school. So, the dream was always to go to university. Well, I fulfilled two dreams with one Jane Bank savings plan, you know. I further my education and I make mama proud.
See so you can make the part, travel far, graduate like a star.
Stop wishing you could. With your Jane Bank savings, you absolutely can. Jane Bank will help you find a way.
Forget ordinary, think Liquimolly. Get a 15% discount on all Liquimolly oils and additives from April 25th to July 30th at all Burt's Auto Parts locations. Buy 4 or more Liquimolly engine oils or 4 transmission oils, you get a free LM40 all-purpose cleaner. But hurry up, the offer runs while stocks last and conditions apply. Forget ordinary, think Liquimolly. And remember, it hurts if you don't check Burt's.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Now, for your responses to our social media question, what more do we need to do now to raise our literacy rate and hence save our economic future? Jakal.
All right, so Sherry in Spanish Town says, we as parents need to be reminded that we are our child or children's first teachers. Help teach your children to read, know numbers and numerals, know their names, address, etc. If the parent doesn't have the time or cannot, read, pay someone to do it. Also, reading should be done robustly in early childhood. Very important to help with literacy.
Thank you very much for that, Cherry. Any other comments?
No, that's
That
it.
is it. That's it. Well, some persons maybe cannot afford to pay someone to read for their children, but I understand the spirit of what Cherry is saying. In other words, let us try to ensure that we find a way. We move right into the second watch, and this is a quotation I'm reading here. When you have a statistic that tells you that come September of 2025, over 11,000 students will be leaving the preschool and going on to primary school who can't read and write. But even more frightening, that 33% of students in the age cohort 7 to 14 years old are not literate. And even more troubling, within the same age cohort, 55% are not numerate. This, ladies and gentlemen, is setting us up for trouble, unquote. This is a quotation, or was said by Professor Denzel Williams. Every year we celebrate those who graduate from primary to secondary and secondary to tertiary level education, but amidst this celebrating there is a seeming need for less cheering and more concern based on research that says we're in a low literacy situation. There's a crisis, and it will impact our economic future unless it is addressed urgently. But how? How can it be addressed? We have here this morning to discuss this Devroyd Davis, facilitator, JN Financial Academy, assistant manager, financial risk, JN Group, and LaSonia Harrison, principal, St. Faith's Primary, president-elect designate, and past president of Jamaica Teachers Association. Good morning to you both.
Good morning, Mr. Marshall, and morning, Ms. Harrison.
Good
And good
morning,
morning to your
Mr.
listener.
Marshall. Good morning, Mr. Dave.
Mr. Davis, I hope I pronounced your first name correctly.
Yes, so it's Devroyd, but
Devroyd.
Yes.
Not Devroyd, Devroyd. Thank you, sir. Getting right into it. Now, is all this information surprising, starting with you, LaSonia Harrison? Surprising?
Well, the data has been good morning to you again, Mr. Marshall, Mr. Davis, and to all the listeners locally, regionally, and globally. The Data has been there for a while. If we are paying attention, the 2021 Patterson report spoke about the high um, illiteracy rate. Then also the World Bank report coming out last year, thereabout, end of 2024, um, speaking about the crisis in the Caribbean, education crisis coming out of the COVID-19 period. And, we've just had several the there was also a report not too long ago coming out of the Early Childhood Commission as to the number of children that are in need of kind official assessment that will coming out of that 4-year-old test that is done at the basic school level. So the data is there to underscore that there is a problem. There is a serious challenge that we're facing as a nation because we're yet as a nation to seriously craft a plan of action for education created by Jamaican educators and inject the requisite amount of monies needed to fund education. And that plan is not a plan that is a this P plan or a that P plan. And depending on who is forms government, it has to be a plan that the nation makes a pledge to and that we're going to stick to it regardless of who is in power at Gordon House.
Would you call it a low literacy crisis?
Well, based on the numbers that are that are going around, we're in a serious problem. We're in a serious position when it is that you're quoting 11,000 leaving preschool can't read and write. It tells you too that the family we're having a crisis in the family because the first point of teaching, the first place for teaching is the home, right? And when children come to school and can't even say their name, at least parents used to send children to school. You can spell your name, you know your name, you know your parents' name, that kind of thing, and you can identify basic colors, basic letters, all of that. Yes. So when it is children come to school and they're unable to do count to 1 to 10, home used to do that, count to 1 to 10. Even our most what you call it illiterate family or persons who are not as competent, they used to ensure that you teach your children how to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, A, B, C, D. If it's even the ABCD song, and we know when they get to LMNOP, that part is a little distorted. So school has to fix that, right? So those are some of the basic
Hold that
prerequisites.
thought. If you could hold that just for a moment. Well, I just wanted to see if I could have a word or two from Mr. Devereux Davis before we head to the break. Mr. Davis.
Sure. So I definitely agree with Miss Harrison. We are in a serious crisis. More alarming to me is the statistics as it relates to the primary school numbers and the high school numbers, where we're seeing very low levels of passes in CSEC and CSEC English and mathematics. So I do indeed agree that we are in a crisis and that we need to take an integrated approach, a multifaceted approach as well to addressing this crisis, because it will come back to hurt us in the future. There are going to be macroeconomic implications for what we are currently seeing.
Lasagna Harris, to what extent? Well, let me raise this question after the break because I see where we are upon a break already. Listeners, please stay with us. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch. Very important topic.
The time by Grace Could Move is
7:45.
Attention seniors, great news! Your July 2025 social pension payment is here and ready for collection. Simply check your text messages to confirm your payment details. For more information, call 876-922-8013 or visit the ministry's website at www.mlss.gov.jm. The Social Pension Program, caring for our elderly. A message from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, providing opportunity, stability, and social protection.
Blessings from this is Sona G, and you can listen to my new song Rescue Me right here on Love 101 FM, the family station. This song is about God always being there, for He has rescued us from the kingdom of darkness and transferred us into the kingdom of His dear Son. Colossians 1:13. Stand it up.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the second watch, and the topic is exploring the connection between low literacy and our economic future. Should we be alarmed? Our guests are Deborah Davis of JN Group and Lawsonia Harrison, principal of St. Faith's Primary, and of course, a past president of the JTA. Now, Lawsonia Harrison, to what extent is the challenge in relation to literacy and numeracy, to what extent is it socioeconomic?
Yeah, it all. I think it all boils down. There is a direct correlation, direct impact, because how ready your workforce is certainly affects our GDP, or turning of the wheels, or be able to fill the different job capacities, the innovations that are needed in order for the economic wheels to turn. It all lies in the people, and that is why we must decide as a country to invest in our greatest resource, and our greatest resource in any nation, regardless if the Lord bless us with natural resources from the earth, our greatest resource is always the human capital. And when it is that a nation decides that we're going to invest, then that investment in turn will result in unearthing the innovative spirit of the human being to now use the natural resources that are out there in order for us to be productive as a nation. At the grade 1 level, I must point in that at primary school, we do what is called at the start of every school year, a grade 1 individual learning profile as the students come in, and it has been across the board for years. You have children in Jamaica who never attended basic school. Their first school was attending primary school, so that is in grade 1 at 6 years old. Some people come in later, because when I look in the book of life, you see that some people enter grade 1 late. Yes, but nonetheless. So, but when children come to school, Mr. Marshall and David, they should come with some basic readiness. And the family is the place for that. And I hear your comment, someone reading the comments to say that if the parents are unable to do it, they should pay someone to do it. We can't keep on putting off our responsibility to someone else. You see, this matter of reading, because even at our school, we're still reflecting on the year and what it is we plan to do as we go forward in the new school year. And with all our efforts to get the parents just to engage, I said, if it's even picture reading, let the child tell you about the pictures there, even if you can't. This has nothing to do with you being able to read. Just let the child habitually every evening, you take the child for half an hour, 15 minutes, and say, we're going to read, and let the child just walk you through the pictures, tell you what they're seeing, build imagination, and create their own story from what they're seeing there. You're not finding parents are busy on TikTok and doing all sorts of other things, and they're not paying attention as they should to their children.
I don't know if you have ever come across this kind of data, or if you have even considered it, but Going to church and Sunday school is
Uh-huh.
actually a very interesting place where you can build
Oh,
literacy.
oh,
And
definitely.
a lot of these children that are coming into the school system at at grade one level or whatever level, are a lot of them not going to Sunday school.
Not going to church. You can talk to my colleagues across the length and breadth. When you ask in devotion, how many persons went to church? God bless how many hands you see punctuating the air. That's another area because the church oftentimes would have assisted because you learn to read the Bible, you do
Yes,
golden text, you do
yes.
presentation, all
So
sorts
you
of
are
things.
exposed to yes, you're exposed to reading. Some of it may be direct, some may be indirect, but you're exposed.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, it would be interesting to see a study on that if someone could do a study on that. Devroy Davis, sir, the Jane Group. How can the Jane Group help to remedy this problem?
All right. So
Practice.
I can't I won't speak for the Jane group. What I'll speak to is the Jane Foundation, which is a charitable arm of the Jane group. So indirectly,
Please go ahead. Please
so
go ahead. Please go ahead.
sure. So at the Jane Group, we have something called at the Jane Financial, at the Jane Foundation, we have something called the Jane Financial Literacy Academy. And although the focus is on finance and personal money management, there is a huge element of numeracy that is involved in that. And so that is one way that the Jane Financial Group is assisting with this. We are also sponsors for a lot of initiatives as it relates to volunteering around helping schools. We participate in Labor Day activities to help refurbish schools or to repaint schools. So we are not just focused on the buildings themselves, but also, as Miss Harrison said, on the human capital, the human resource, and helping persons to understand numbers, which is really what our focus is.
Okay. Okay. And how's that been going?
I think it's been going well. We have so far impacted close to 8,000 persons across the island, and we continue to lead these initiatives. We are also participating now in the universities, getting more persons involved in understanding finance. And I want to take a step back just to say,
Sure.
in terms of the impact on the macroeconomic factors for Jamaica. Miss Harrison spoke to the GDP, but there's also this concept of a GDP per capita, which really speaks to the productivity of the country as a whole. And key inputs for that is going to be our ability to not only read, but also to understand and comprehend what we're reading and also use numbers. The article that was posted also spoke to the importance of the middle class and understanding that the middle class is really what allows that engine to work. We need to have improvements in the literacy and numeracy levels such that persons can go into the higher forms of education, can get into tertiary and other secondary levels of education such that they are able to earn at the higher levels, thus increasing the country's GDP per capita.
Okay, thank you for that. And can you enlighten us in terms of how you interface with or engage with persons who are benefiting from the initiatives of the Jane Foundation?
Sure. So we have seminars that we put on. In fact, we are having our summer camp starting next week, and that really focuses on, like, persons are students are out of school now, and so on an annual basis, the Jane Financial Group through the Jane Foundation puts on this summer camp where we really teach persons about financial literacy, and within that, you're going to learn how to do basic mathematics around budgeting. So you have $100,000. How do you budget that to meet your financial needs? It's also looking at investments and understanding the very basics of starting to invest in the stock market, which, by the way, is one of the key ways that we can actually support macroeconomic growth, because as persons create businesses, if we as a country are able to invest in those businesses, then those businesses are able to expand, reach perhaps even international audiences, thus increasing the amount of productivity and, of course, the wealth of the country as a whole.
And your engagements are mostly in the corporate area of Kingston and St. Andrew, or are there in other parts of Jamaica?
We go right across the island, and some of our initiatives are done virtually, allowing persons to really interact with us and with the other facilitators through any from anywhere in the world through the modality of the internet.
Yes, and you mentioned summer school. So what are the broad age ranges that you're catering to?
So it's mostly persons between, say, 9 to 14, 9 to 15, thereabout.
To 15, thereabout. Okay. And nothing yet for those below age 9?
It's something that we are definitely looking into and trying to get into the primary schools and perhaps even interacting with the basic schools as well.
Yes, yes. Lasagna Harrison, how does the JN Foundation initiative strike you in terms of the concerns that you're having about literacy and numeracy, in terms of, you mentioned as far back as grade 1.
Well, certainly, they're already into the primary level because the age 9 would certainly be at where that child is still in the primary bracket. That's around grade 3, thereabouts. So they have infiltrated the primary level. And so kudos to them in terms of their initiatives to assist with numeracy, because that is equally important. But we know foundation to numeracy is literacy, because if you're unable to read, then it has direct impact and correlation on your numeracy levels. So we thank them for the work that they're doing, and we look forward to other, I would think, corporate sponsors doing similar activity and also sustainable activities too, because I do know that corporate Jamaica comes on when it is Read Across Jamaica Day, when it's Child's Month, when it's in the summer period, and
you'd like something continuous
in terms of and where the finances are needed, because the truth is, Mr. Marshall, is that what Jamaica needs is a national campaign. We need a national campaign toward that education is important. Education, because what is happening, we have to talk about some truth that we're fighting out there. There is a subculture that is fighting against the existing culture. That education is not important because the sum total of man now becomes how much money you can earn. And the truth is, there are ways in which Jamaicans are earning money. And to say you don't need education to do that, so we need to talk some of the truth, some of the things that is fighting classroom and fighting the business of education, where it is our own children looking on saying, then why do I need to go this educated route when it is that I can drive big car, I can get access, I can go the amount of parties and all of these things, and I don't need education to do that. So as a nation, we need to take stock.
Some of them might have a problem filling out a form.
We need to take stock. Some of the person, the things that are in how you get a license and you didn't even take the road test or do the road test in order for you to. You look here, we have some serious fundamental issues as a country to deal with and to speak to. We need a national reading campaign. Just recently, there was a release in the newspapers to say that the national libraries are crying out for help themselves in terms of human resource, financial resource, infrastructural resourcing that is needed. We have not. That this is a song that we used to listen to. Reading maketh a good man. I believe that was a national campaign. We need a national campaign. We need to fix early childhood education.
And Davis, I'm getting a signal because we are completely out of time. There's so much more that we could say, but I want to thank the both of you for your thoughts this morning. Very important discussion, and we need to continue having these discussions. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Bless you.
And listeners and viewers, thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. And listeners and viewers, thanks for being with us today. Join us again tomorrow as we look at other topical issues, controversial issues. Visit the Love 101 FM YouTube channel, Facebook page, and now TikTok at Love 101 FM Jamaica for this and all other Love 101 FM programs. And of course, download our Love 101 app and stay connected to us, the family station, Love 101 FM, the number one gospel station in Jamaica. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and to our guests. Join me tomorrow as I look at other issues of the day. I am Stokeley. Marshall, handing back to Love in the Morning with Chukal.
You can live life to the fullest with HIV. This time signal is brought to you by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. The time is
8:01 a.m. and you are now invited to listen to Forward in